Good evening, everybody. Will the Standing Committee on Rules of the House please come to order? This meeting has been called to consider proposed amendments to the rules, orders, and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. Our first item of business is the election of a vice chairperson. Are there any nominations? Of the Honourable Member for Assiniboia.
I would nominate the member from Brandon East, Mr. Iffelson.
The Honourable Member for Brandon East has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, the Honourable Member for Brandon East is elected vice chairperson. Oh. Okay. You will find before you copies of a document entitled Legislative Assembly of Manitoba Rule Change Proposals, October 2021, which we will be considering tonight. Does the committee agree to allow the clerk and deputy clerk to speak on the record to provide an explanation for each amendment? Agreed? Does the government House Leader have any opening comments? Hearing none, oh.
He's currently muted.
Just wondering if the government House Leader will be making any opening comments. We would ask the government House Leader to turn his video on and his microphone if he does wish to make comments.
Comments.
We cannot hear the minister. Can he turn his microphone on?
I believe my microphone is on. Can you not hear me?
It is now. Thank you. Do you have any opening comments?
Not any other than to thank the clerks and all those who were involved in the preparation of these rules, and to thank the other opposition House leaders for the cooperative spirit in which these rules were done.
We thank the minister. Does the official opposition House Leader have any opening comments? Ms. Fontaine.
Miigwech, Madam Chairperson. I will just reiterate what the government House Leader said, and I just want to backtrack a little bit. I know that we did quite a few meetings during the summer. I know that Rick and Patricia, in particular Rick, has been wanting us to meet for quite a while, and has been that voice over here telling us to get ourselves in order here and to start meeting. I know that this is actually just a fraction of the rules that you have in the queue. I know that we went through quite a bit this summer, and we're finally able to agree upon this. I know that a lot of work goes into this, more than we can even know, obviously, because we're not a part of that process. And so I just want to say miigwech to Rick and Patricia, and to all the clerks that do this work, this important work. I know that every opportunity that I have, I always acknowledge the work that you all do. We wouldn't be able to do our jobs if it wasn't for the two of you and for the rest of the clerks. And so I say miigwech for that. And likewise for the government House Leader, and to the Liberal House Leader, miigwech for what was actually a pretty good process, a long process during the summer, but a very good process. Miigwech.
We thank the member. Does the member for River Heights have an opening statement? Mr. Gerard?
Thank you. Yes. Let me just take a couple of pretty quick comments. I appreciate the work of both the other House leaders. Appreciate the work of Rick and Patricia and staff. I know I've received emails on this over the Thanksgiving weekend, so that is a particular effort and due diligence and care, which is much appreciated. And I hope this is going to be the first step in a steady process of change for the rules as we update them and look carefully as we go step by step. Thank you.
We thank the member. We will now begin consideration of the document. We will consider these amendments in numerical order, and members may ask questions or comment on each proposal as we proceed. For your reference, I will be referring to the proposal numbers listed on the left side of each page. Starting with proposal number 1 regarding gender-neutral language. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am going to just give a brief explanation, but also to give you the heads up that Rick and I are taking turns speaking to these items. We're going to do it a page at a time, so I will have all the items on page 3. He'll talk to the items on page 4, and so going forward, just so that you know we're tag teaming. The first one on gender neutral language is something that's been desired for a long time, and that's to modify language in our rule book to make it gender neutral and to replace his and her and he and she to something more gender neutral, there and they and themselves, which is in fitting with where society is these days.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 1 then regarding rule on gender-neutral language pass? Proposal number 1 regarding rule on the gender-neutral language is accordingly passed. Okay. Proposal number 2, definitions. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are proposing to add 2 definitions to the definition section because when you do that, it replaces having to do explanations numerous times in the rules. And the 2 definitions we are proposing to add are definitions for committee of the whole House and critic.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 2 regarding the rule on definitions pass? The proposal is accordingly passed. Proposal number 3, sessional calendar, ensuring enough sitting days for designated bills. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This involves a change to Rule 2 Sub 1. Members may know that depending on the calendar from year to year, we may not have quite enough sitting days to deal with all stages of the designated bills. So this rule change will add a provision in such that if we need to sit for 17 days and the calendar won't give us 17 days, we will start the sitting in the fall 2 days earlier to accommodate for that.
Do the House leaders have any comments or questions? Honorable Mr. Gerard.
Yeah, as House leaders, we looked at several options, and this seemed to be the best in terms of being able to provide for what's needed in the fall session.
Are there any further comments? If not, shall proposal number 3 pass? Oh. The Honorable Clerk.
Oh, I'm honorable, thank you. Just to clarify, it may not necessarily be 2 days, it could be a week, depending on the calendar. I got excited and said it was 2 days, but it could be up to a week depending on the calendar from year to year.
Any comments from the House leaders on that one? If not, then shall proposal number 3 pass? Proposal number 3 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 4, sessional calendar, specified bills wording. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you as well to the House leaders for your kind words. This is something that the clerks take very seriously, and Patricia and I put a lot of time into this, as do our whole crew, so those words are appreciated. This item here is basically a wording update. We're adding the words identified as before specified. Specified, of course, is a category of bills that we have. The specified bills are the ones that the government can guarantee passage in the spring. In other rules, we use the phrase identified as specified This rule, when we originally wrote it, we just forgot to add that phrase in, so we're just adding that in to make it consistent with other rules.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 4 pass? Proposal number 4 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 5, voting deferral exceptions. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The existing sub-rule here, 14.4, is incomplete. It's missing some exceptions from the rule, and the rule itself identifies moments where you can defer a vote. When a vote is requested in the House under certain conditions, you could defer it. So this list had 5 items listed there. There was 3 or 4 others that needed to be added on there. We actually tried adding them on, but it was kind of getting long and cumbersome, and then we realized it's actually much simpler to just remove the list and say, unless otherwise stated in these rules, this rule will apply. So that was a simpler fix, and it was part of, I guess, a longer ongoing challenge we have of trying to upgrade the rules that we have into sort of more modern, simplified, plain language to make them easier for everyone to understand. So that's the purpose of this change.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 5 regarding deferral exceptions pass? Proposal number 5 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 6, naming provisions and naming not subject to appeal. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a proposed change to Rule 18.1. It's doing 2 things. It's plain languaging the rule. It's also removing the fact that the decision of the chair is subject to appeal because it's not on matters of order. This is something that should have been changed in the rules years ago, and we noticed it and decided it was time to get it changed to what it should be.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 6 pass? Proposal number 6 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 7, divisions during private members' business. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a proposed change to Rules 23, 7, and 8. It's often problematic when we're deferring a vote to 10:55 on Thursdays because the hour for private members' resolutions can end up getting wiped out if the vote ends up going for a full hour. So instead of having the vote deferred to that time, we were going to say at 11:55, all deferred votes take place then, because it would only be a much smaller interruption for a private member's resolution by having the vote at that time.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Mr. Gerard.
Yeah, just to say, this is one that I had pushed for because what was happening was that the NDP, or the official opposition, were losing the ability to take forward private members' resolutions on a number of occasions. And this will mean that there can't be then a vote which happens at 10:55 and bells ring for an hour so that you lose the. In this way, you will get the private member's resolution for the official opposition, and you won't have to worry about other parties delaying it or deferring it or taking up the time of the private member's resolution.
Are there any other comments from the House leaders? If not, shall proposal number 7 pass? Proposal number 7 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 8, member statements, including names in Hansard. The Honorable Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This proposal relates to a practice that has evolved in recent years where members would be making their member statements, which are 2-minute statements, and at the end of it, they would ask leave to include names so that they would appear in Hansard. So whether they're talking about a hockey team or constituent group, they didn't want to use up part of their 2 minutes to list off all the names, but they wanted them to be recognized. So the practice evolved for members to ask for leave or agreement of the House for that to be included in the Hansard transcript. This puts some rules, some structure around that. It also simplifies it. Members don't, once this is adopted, members won't have to actually ask for leave. It'll just be inferred, or pardon me, it'll be, if they mention it in the statement, then they will be included in Hansard. But I'd like to clarify one thing. In this rule, the rule states in part, if a member indicates that they wish to include in the Hansard transcript the names of individuals referenced in their statement, and it goes on from there. What we mean by the word reference there is not that you're not going to say the names and then have them listed again, because that would be obviously redundant. So it's more like, you know, the team, so-and-so team won a championship last night. That's referencing the team in it. And then if the member provides this list of names to Hansard before 5 o'clock on the same sitting day, and also if the names are legible, then they will be accepted. We're also counting on members to ensure that they give us accurate lists. Something that Hansard staff has done over the years is when a list is provided, they'll go through and, you know, look up the team and make sure everything's spelled right, which is, as you can imagine, quite labor intensive, especially if there were, say, several statements of 50 names each. So we're putting the onus on members to, if you're giving us a list, make sure that this is the correct list of names, everyone's spelled right, and so on, because if this becomes more common, we just literally don't have the resources to do that much research on a daily basis. So that's the intent of this rule, and I think.
The upshot is if you
Madam
adopt-
Clerk?
Madam Speaker, the upshot is if you adopt this, you no longer have to ask for leave for names to go into Hansard.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 8 pass? Proposal number 8 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 9, precedence of government orders. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is an example of some archaic language that still exists in our rule book. So the term government order and private members order is a term that was probably used 50, 60, 70 years ago fairly regularly. We no longer use that term. We just refer to basically government business, or if it's more specific, a government resolution or a government motion. So what we've done here is just take out the reference to government orders, and we're just talking about how this is items standing under government business or private members' business. So it's really just updating the language to use the words, one that we all use in common parlance in the Assembly, but also this is actually how they're listed on the order paper. So it's really just updating this rule to our modern practice.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal 9 pass? Proposal number 9 is accordingly passed. Moving on then to proposal number 10, budget debate speaking time exceptions. Madam Clerk.
Madam Speaker, we are proposing 2 changes to Rule 34.9. One is to put in the rule something which is a practice of the House we've had forever, that there's no time limit on the Minister of Finance in moving the budget motion. We talk about, you know, the leaders of the parties, but we don't acknowledge that the Minister of Finance or the minister moving a budget motion has unlimited time as well, so that should be recognized in the rule. And it also adds further clarity for if a party leader wants to give away their unlimited speaking time to another member, they have to do that before that leader speaks in the debate.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 10 pass? Proposal number 10 then is accordingly passed. Proposal number 11, 30-minute time limit exceptions. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are doing very minor changes here. One is to take away the term government order and instead substitute government motion, because we don't really use the terms government order, and to also clarify that unless it's otherwise stated in the rules, no member gets to speak for more than 30 minutes in a debate. Just a more simplified way of putting it.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 11 pass? Proposal number 11 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 12, Committee of the Whole House. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you. This rule is basically a clarification of terminology and improving the wording of the rule. It's also moving one component of this rule to a subsequent rule, which we'll get at in a second, which imposes a speaking time limit, but it's basically just a clarification of terminology.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 12 pass? Proposal 12 is accordingly passed. Proposal 13, speeches in committee of the whole. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is also a clarification of terminology and improving the wording of the rule, and we're also moving the time limit provision, which was in the previous rule 75.1, now into 75.3, basically saying that all speeches in the committee of the whole shall not exceed 5 minutes. We're just putting it in there from a different rule.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 13 pass? Proposal number 13 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 14, supply chair rulings not subject to challenge. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you. This is an omission from previous rule changes. There was a time when any ruling of a chairperson or a speaker could be challenged. Several years ago, that was changed to limit it only to matters of privilege being challenged by matters of privilege rulings made by the speaker were able to be challenged. So this is actually something that should have been changed quite a while back, and so we're just updating it. We also added a provision cross-referencing it to another rule. That's where you'll see that within 75.4, you'll see subject to Rule 18.2. Rule 18.2 governs what happens if there's disorder in a committee, and by the disorder, we're talking about, you know, a member that is really kind of going off script and has causing a lot of disturbance in the committee. We've had some experience with this kind of thing over the years. So this allows the chairperson basically to report that to the speaker. And it would happen probably on a subsequent day, but it would allow the chairperson to present a report to the speaker saying such and such a member disregarded the authority of the chairperson and so on, which would then get dealt with by the speaker. This is just really a mechanism for that transferal. And 18.2 is a rule that already does that. We're just putting this in here as a cross-reference.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 14 pass? Proposal number 14 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 15, opposition staff in the chamber section of supply. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a change to Rule 75.5, which puts into the rules a practice we've been following for the last number of years, whereby staff from recognized opposition parties can come into the chamber during estimates to give assistance to the critic. It would formalize this in the rules.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Mr. Gertson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairperson and Madam Clerk. Madam Speaker and Madam Clerk. The only comment I would have is that the rule is a reflection of traditional practice. I think it's helpful for the opposition. Having been in opposition myself, I know it's helpful. It doesn't designate the number of staff, but I think the intention is that it would be a small table in front of the opposition critic. So likely not more than 2 is what I'm assuming.
Madam Clerk.
Madam Speaker, we do have that table there. Usually in the past, it's been 1 staff person at a time from an opposition party, and they can switch staff in and out. It doesn't have to be the same person all afternoon, but it's usually been 1 at a time.
Ms. Fontaine.
I would say that that's been the standard practice, and I would imagine that when we have estimates, we have other staff in other rooms, so I wouldn't imagine it being any more than that either. So I think that we all are on the same page in respect to that number.
Mr. Gertson.
I thank you, both the opposition House Leader and the Clerk, for the clarification. I know this process, having gone through it before, it's important to have that on hand, so is this often reflected upon in terms of the intention of the rules.
Are there any further comments from the House leaders? If not, shall proposal number 15 pass? Proposal number 15 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 16, motions to reduce line items in the Committee of Supply. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a change to Rule 76-1. We are making this change because you can't delete an estimates item. So why should we have it stated in the rule? So we are going to have that taken out. You also can't really vary an estimates item, but you can reduce it. So that's why, again, we're plain languaging the wording to be specific to the intent of what you can actually do.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Shall proposal number 16 pass? Proposal number 16 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 17, expiration of the 100 hours. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So Rule 76.5 refers to what happens when we get to the end of our estimates process and the 100 hours expire. This change isn't changing anything about that, how that rule works. It's just broadening the definition of who the chairpersons are, chairpersons of a committee of the whole House. It just sort of clarifies it and makes it consistent with other wording that we use as well. It's as simple as that.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 17 pass? Proposal number 17 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 18, speeches in the Committee of Supply. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is another clarification of terminology, and we're also adding in here a reference to, we referenced that speeches can be no more than 5 minutes, except for opening statements in supply, which are 10 minutes, and that's recognized in both points here. The wording is just sort of updated, and we also added in the reference that speeches must be strictly relevant to the item under discussion. That's a phrase that we use with some regularity in the rules, so we're just sort of having it as another statement here, just as a reminder.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 18 pass? Proposal number 18 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 19, seating in chamber supply. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So it's sort of referencing, cross-referencing to some extent, pardon me, that was about staff. This is about members, the rule the clerk was mentioning. This Rule 77.3 puts into the rule something that has been allowed by leave. It's during Committee of Supply sittings in the chamber. Basically, a minister presenting their estimates or a critic from the minister's department, as well as any other member participating in debate, are allowed to sit in the front bench. When we do Committee of Supply in the chamber, we don't necessarily need to use all 3 rows. We put everyone in the front row, then there's a little bit more ability to have a back and forth. It just makes it a little bit more collegial.
Madam Clerk.
The difference here is members who are not critics can sit in the first row and speak from that spot, because they can sit there now, but if they want to be recognized on the record to speak, they have to go back to their assigned seat. This rule changes that. They can be speaking from the front row. And it would be assumed that opposition members would be seated in the front row on the opposition side and government members on the government side in the first row.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Mr. Gertson.
Only that I wanted to clarify, I think, exactly what the clerk has now said, that it doesn't state it explicitly in this rule. It simply says they can sit, anybody can sit in the front row. It would be to the assigned seats that they are for their caucus.
Any further comments? Mr. Gerard?
That, just for clarification, in terms of, for example, the Liberal members, we would be able to not only sit where there is a caucus member sitting. Is that correct? In other words, you know, because there's not a caucus seat on the front row, then Liberals would not be able to sit on the front row. Is that correct?
Madam Clerk?
That is correct, not unless the Liberals did have a seat on the front row, such as when they have 4 or more members, and then they do have a front row seat. But you couldn't take over a seat that's been assigned to another caucus.
Are there any further comments from the House leaders? If not, shall proposal number 19 pass? Proposal 19 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 20, altering the estimate sequence. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a change to Rule 77-9, and it is going to streamline the process for changing the estimate sequence. The way we have to do it right now is it has to be done by motion in the House, and it has to be done in the House. We've had situations happen in the past where we've been in a section of the Committee of Supply and they wanted to change the sequence. Well, we've had to recess supply, reconvene in the House, and then change the sequence. Now, the estimate sequence can be changed by written agreement of the government and other recognized House leaders, and it just gets tabled, whether it's in Committee of Supply or in the House.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 20 pass? Proposal number 20 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 21, voting and supply on Fridays. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is basically a plain language redrafting of 7713 to make it a little bit more explicit about what you can and cannot do when Committee of Supply is sitting on a Friday. It clarifies you cannot have a request for a quorum count. A motion for the committee to rise is only decided on a voice vote, meaning you cannot ask for a recorded vote on it. A request for a recorded vote on any question must be deferred until the next sitting of the Committee of Supply. And after a formal vote has been deferred, that section of supply must rise. And after the Committee of Supply rises on a Friday, no other business may be called in the House.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 21 pass? Proposal number 21 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 22, global debate in supply. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I will state right up front that this change brings me some joy. This is a process, this refers to basically the manner in which debate in a section of the Committee of Supply proceeds. Years ago, I'd say decades ago, the process used to be what we would call chronological or line by line. So you do resolution 2, and then you'd ask all the questions on resolution 2, you'd pass it, then you move to resolution 3, and so on and so on. I've been here almost 21 years, and before I started, it had already evolved to what we call a global debate system. So rather than doing it chronologically, you'd have one big discussion about all the department, and then you'd ask all the questions at the end. For 20-some years, we've been asking leave at the beginning of every section. Does the committee agree to a global debate? It's for a clerk, it gets to be kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard after a while, because you know what it's going to be, but you just want it to get there. Anyway, this change puts that into the rules. Basically, all debates will be global debates. We won't have to ask that question anymore. And then it also spells out that when that's done, then the resolutions will be passed and you'll finish the department as it goes forward. And so this is a change that is a relief to clerks because it just simplifies the process. Probably a relief to members too, because you don't have to go through that little charade at the beginning of the process. Yeah.
Do the House leaders have any comment? Mr. Gerard.
Yeah, just a clarification. In C, it talks about items can be called for the purpose of moving amendments. Maybe you can just outline the process for moving amendments when we are not calling the line item.
Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Dr. Gerard. That's a good question. So what this generally refers to is it's quite common in many sections when we're dealing with a department. When we get to the end, we get to the section that includes the minister's salary. There's often a desire on an opposition's part to move a motion to reduce that minister's salary. So that's primarily what this is referring to. It could refer to other motions, but historically it's exclusively been motions to reduce a minister's salary. So what this remains in the rule to allow that process to happen. Because if we're going on a global debate and we're not calling it line by line, then it makes it a bit murky as to when and how a member could move such a motion. But this item, that provision is there to ensure that members can still do that if that's their choice.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 22 pass? Proposal number 22 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 23, adding the capital supply resolution to the estimates consideration list. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Madam Speaker, this links up with a change that will be coming later in the package as well, where we're streamlining something that's called the main and capital process. There's one item called the capital supply resolution, which historically has been included in that main and capital process. In order to streamline the main and capital process, this rule would move that resolution to be considered along with all of the other departmental estimates resolutions. So when we have our estimate sequence, we would now have one extra line in there that says the capital supply resolution. And it would get passed in one of the sections of the committee of supply as opposed to in that's part of that main and capital process. So everything is still being passed and being considered properly. We're just moving when it happens from main and capital into the departmental estimates part of the process.
Do the House leaders, Mr. Deputy Clerk?
And it's tied to what we're doing in item 31, which will be described when we get there in a few minutes, but it's all part of the same change.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 23 pass? Proposal number 23 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 24, motion to leave the chair. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The motion referred to in this rule relates to how the House used to resolve into the Committee of Supply probably 20 plus years ago. Now the government House leader just stand up and says, Madam Speaker, would you please resolve into the Committee of Supply, and the House would do that. There used to be a process, a couple of stage process that actually predates me, and it remained in the rules, was changed, and then this reference to it remained in the rules. And the clerk might be able to give a little more context on that.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's actually where the grievance procedure used to be. It used to be when a motion was to resolve into the Committee of Supply. That's when grievances were done many years ago. But we've streamlined that, and grievances are now part of routine proceedings.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 24 pass? Resolution, proposal number 24 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 25, presenting petitions. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a change to Rule 133.4, and I hope I'm not shattering any illusions because the current rule says it's the Speaker who vets petitions. Well, we're just saying let's reflect reality and have it say the clerk examines the petitions.
Are there any comments from the House leaders? If not, Mr. Gertson.
Not specific to what's being proposed here, but just to advocate for broader discussions on petitions more generally in the House and future rules discussions.
Are there any further comments by House leaders? If not, shall proposal number 25 pass? Proposal number 25 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 26, deferral of report stage amendments. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a proposal to delete current Rule 1397 because it is a redundant practice. It was based on the former practice we used to have with report stage amendments where they were distributed and considered on the same afternoon, and on occasion members would want to have those report stage amendments deferred. We have since changed that practice where report stage amendments are distributed on one day and then considered on another, so we don't need this provision for deferring.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 26 pass? Proposal number 26 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 27, speaking times on report stage amendments. Update. Madam Speaker.
Madam Clerk.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know we feel interchangeable sometimes. This is a proposed change to Rule 139.10, and we are saying that it should say leaders of recognized parties because we may have more than one official opposition party, and it's a little bit more inclusive if we just say leaders of recognized parties.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 27 pass? Proposal number 27 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 28, grouping report stage amendments. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This process has something that's been used occasionally in recent years, and so we're codifying it in the rules. So Rule 139.11 already says that the Speaker may select or combine amendments or clauses to be proposed at the report stage, but it doesn't actually give any mechanics as to how that should work. Now, we've been doing this over the last number of years. It's actually been becoming a little bit more common in recent years. And we've been following some practice from the House of Commons, and we've now done it, I'd say, at least a half dozen, maybe more times. And in each case, the Speaker provides a ruling giving an explanation as to how we're combining them and so on. And so we're basically putting that, the explanation we've used in those rulings is now forming the basis of this rule. And the basic concepts of it are, a member, any member might say, let's say they file 5 different report stage amendments to a bill. If, this is a key point, if the member requests, the Speaker will see to combining them. The Speaker is not going to automatically combine a member's report stage amendments, and if the member doesn't want it to happen, then it won't happen. Each report stage will get its own debate and its own vote. But if the member requests it, then we'll use the guidelines found in the new version of 139.11. So basically, those are, if several different amendments could form the subject of a single debate, in other words, they're making a similar change in a few different spots in the rule, then that would be a rationale for combining them. Or if they could also be combined according to the location they're in, where they're inserted in the bill, and when they relate to the same clause or clauses. So then amendments that are grouped like that will be moved consecutively, so you move the one, you move the other, then it'll be the subject of one single debate and one vote. So it could be 3 different report stage amendments, and they'll have one vote on it, and the result of that vote would apply to all 3 of them. And again, if the member doesn't want them grouped, then they won't be grouped. It has to be at the member's request.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall Resolution 28 pass? Oh. Shall proposal number 28 pass? Proposal number 28 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 29, Appendix D, Budget Day Procedure. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this, we're now into the appendices of the rule book. This one relates to the procedure for Budget Day. Currently, the title of this refers to budget procedure, which is just inaccurate because there's more to budget than the budget day, but this process is specific to that one day when the Minister of Finance presents the budget address. So we're adding in budget, we're adding in the word day to the title, and then we're also, consistent with the first change in this package, we're making a gender-neutral change too. And this is only in the English version, because in the current English version, it says there are 2 messages from His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor. So we're just changing that to there are 2 messages from the Lieutenant Governor, not assigning gender to it at all. I think the clerk has a comment.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to just provide a little bit of extra context to what Rick is saying, we can't just, as the procedural staff, change this on our own because it is in the rule book as an appendices. We have to get approval from the Rules Committee to do a change like this.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 29 pass? Proposal number 29 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 30, Appendix D, streamlining the main and capital process. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are doing some proposed changes to the main and capital supply procedure. We previously in the meeting about 10 minutes ago said that we were going to take the capital supply resolution out of main and capital and put it in departmental estimates. So we've added that change in here. We are also doing a change where we are going to group the first readings together for the main and capital supply bills, because that will reduce some steps and it will also reduce some waiting times. Because now we have to do one bill, first reading, distribute it, wait till it's distributed, then do second reading, then go to the next bill for first reading. In this case, we could do the first readings one after another, and by the time we get to the second reading, we're ready to go ahead on the first bill, and we're, saving the House a minute or two of time.
Do the House leaders have any comment? If not, shall proposal number 30 pass? Proposal number 30 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 31, Appendix E, speaking times. The Honorable Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That feels like a promotion, being honorable all of a
I
sudden.
know, they don't know me.
So this is a change, actually, there's a number of changes to the Appendix E in our rule book, which is something that was inserted in the rules, I think about, in the neighborhood of 20 years ago. And it's basically just a reference list, because there are many different provisions throughout the rules saying how long members can speak on certain items. Member statements are 20 minutes, debate on a government bill is 30, debate on private members 10, and so on. It goes on and on. So this was an idea to put them all in one place to make a quick reference chart. And so we put it in there about 20 years ago, and we haven't done a lot with it since then. So this is really just updating to reflect a number of changes that have happened in the rule book over the years. And again, it's now, I think, it used to take up one page in the rule book, and now it's about 2 or 3. But the idea of it is just to have a quick cross-reference. How long do I get to speak on a member statement or whatever? That's all in one spot for members.
Any comments from the House leaders? Mr. Gertson.
More a question. Rule 135, so the first reading of bills is 30 seconds for the mover of the motion. That's 30 seconds on the moving of the motion or the description of the bill?
Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Premier. That is for having the purpose of the bill explained, and this actually relates to another change that is under consideration, currently been deferred. Over the years, the rule regarding first reading says that the mover may make a brief statement, but historically, successive speakers for 20 or 30 years have interpreted brief as 30 seconds. So there is a rule, a further part of this rule that will be changed if the rules group decides to change it in the future, that will specify that as 30 seconds, or they could put a different time on it, but that's what's been interpreted over the years. So this appendix is sort of referencing practice, what currently has been observed for introduction of bills. Basically, the idea behind it is you're not debating the bill, you're just saying, this is the purpose of the bill, I hope you vote for it.
Mr. Gertson.
I would just say that some of those 30 seconds seem like the longest 30 seconds of my life then, but I'll look forward to seeing this rule put in practice.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If you think back in your memory banks, it's very rare that a speaker intervenes when a member's speaking at first reading. If a member's going on 2 or 3 minutes, then you might start to see those time signals coming out, but usually the speaker gives a little bit of latitude, so they have been longer than 30 seconds. They've been 45 up to a minute.
Any further comments? Oh, Dr. Gerard?
Just under motions or resolutions, government, there's a note here, member may divide speaking time equally with another member of the same party. That's so that you can have 2 members of a party using the 30-minute time slot.
Yeah.
Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you. That's correct, Dr. Gerard. There is a provision in one of our rules already, which it's not used very often, but it allows you to, basically because we have a rotation between parties, this allows you can use half or less of the amount of time, but you can fit 2 members in where one would normally speak. So rather than one member speaking for 30 minutes, 2 members could speak for 15 minutes each from the same party before we have to go on the rotation.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. we haven't seen it happen recently, but we often would see that in the past with like throne speech and budget debates. When they're trying to get more members up speaking, they would divide their time up, but that has seemingly fallen out of practice in the last several years.
Dr. Gerard?
Only apply to a recognized party?
Mr. Deputy Clerk?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I recall. Do you recall off the top of your head, Patricia? I can look it
It
up.
just says member.
I think it could apply to an independent member, but I'm going to reserve the right to double check and get back to you on that, Dr. Gerard. Okay.
Are there any further comments from the House leaders? If not, shall proposal number 31 pass? Proposal number 31 is accordingly passed. Does the committee agree that the amendments to the rules, orders, and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as agreed to by this committee will come into force at the commencement of the fourth session of the 42nd Legislature? Mr. Islofson?
Madam Chair, I just want some clarifications because I didn't have an opportunity after everyone you asked for a question from the government, from the House leaders. But on number 13, when we look at changes there, we have the Committee of the Whole House. So on number 12, we added the word House to be Committee of the Whole House. Number 14, we added of the whole House to become the whole House. But on number 13, speeches in Committee of the Whole, we did not add the word House. So I'm just wondering, is there a Committee of the Whole and a Committee of the Whole House, or is that just an oversight?
Mr. Deputy Clerk?
Oh, he had his hand up first.
No, you can go ahead.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. They are one and the same. The Committee of the Whole House is Committee of the Whole. It just gets called one or the other, but they are the same.
Mr. Islofson?
So I'm just wondering then, just to keep consistency, if we should add House on number 13. I know it's passed already, but to me, it would make more sense to add the word Committee of the Whole House so that we have some consistency and flow in the document.
Is there any further debate on this, or shall I ask for leave to go back to 13 to make this change? Leave has been granted. So then we will go back to 13, speeches in Committee of the Whole. And as requested, it will be changed to Whole House. Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to clarify, it would be changed in both the title and in the text of 75.3 to say Committee of the Whole House in both locations.
Does the committee then agree that the clerk be authorized to renumber the rules, orders, and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba and make other minor corrections that in no way alter the intended meaning of these amendments? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Does the committee agree that the clerk be authorized to make minor corrections to the French version of the rules, orders, and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba to ensure the equivalence of both versions of the rules, ensuring that they in no way alter the intended meaning of these amendments? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Does the committee agree that the clerk be authorized to prepare revised rule books incorporating all amendments, additions, and deletions? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Does the committee agree that these amendments to the rules are permanent? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Does the committee agree that for future reference, the document entitled Legislative Assembly of Manitoba Rule Change Proposals, October 2021, be appended at the end of the Hansard transcript of this meeting? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Does the committee agree that the amendments to the rules, orders, and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, as agreed to by this committee, be reported to the House? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. This concludes the business before the committee, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank all honorable members here for their work this evening. Oh, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to clarify, did we cover a coming into force date for these rules as a recommendation to the House? Okay, okay, good. Thank you.
That was the first question posed and approved. So this concludes the business before the committee, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank all honorable members here for their work this evening. I would also like to extend thanks for all the hard work that has been done behind the scenes to get this package of rule changes before us today. Lastly, I would like to give special recognition to our hardworking translators who worked through the Thanksgiving weekend to ensure that a French version of all the proposals would be available for the committee report on this meeting. The hour being 7:33. What is the will of the committee? Committee rise. And thank you, everybody.